Alright, welcome back to the Recipe Analyst. Today I'm going to make cheese twists, which is a recipe that comes from King Arthur's Baker's Companion. And I'm pretty sure you can also find this recipe on the King Arthur website. To start off, I'm going to go ahead and break up the butter into about 1/2 inch cubes, which is quartering each stick of butter and then cutting it into cubes like this. And then I put that in the refrigerator to keep it cool while I go ahead and grate the Parmigiano Reggiano for this recipe. And I think you could just use regular Parmesan if you don't want to use this, but I had it already, so I went ahead and used it. Next, I'm going to go ahead and measure out the flour. I think it's about 3 cups of flour that you need for this. And then I add in the butter that I had chilling in the refrigerator. Then I'm going to go ahead and use the paddle attachment on the stand mixer and mix it until the butter is a little bit broken up, but it's going to be mostly large clumps before I go to the next step. Then I go ahead and dissolve the salt in the water, which I'm going to add to the flour mixture right now. Then on slow speed again, I'm just gonna mix that until I get a shaggy dough like this. Then I'm gonna flour my work surface so I can bring the dough together. And I'm just gonna do that by folding it over on itself a few times so it just becomes a little bit more homogeneous. And if it starts to stick a little too much, you can try to add some flour on top as well as the bottom side. And once it all kind of smooths out and holds its shape together, I'm going to wrap it up in plastic wrap and put that in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes to rest. After resting for about 30 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and take it out, flour my work surface, put our dough onto that work surface and flour the top as well so it doesn't stick to the rolling pin. And I'll just roll it out into a large rectangle so I can start doing these letter folds. And I'm gonna end up doing 4 letter folds in total and rolling out the dough in between each fold. So this develops the layers and the flakiness in the dough. So this step is kind of like making biscuits, but since it's a Blitz puff pastry, it's not as difficult or time intensive as making a full-on puff pastry. So after my 4 folds, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it in plastic wrap again and let it rest for at least 30 minutes. While the dough is in the refrigerator, I'm gonna go ahead and mix the cheese with the paprika and the cayenne pepper. And the recipe says you can use less of this if you're afraid that it might be too spicy. I'm also going to go ahead and prepare the egg wash, which is just the 2 eggs and a tablespoon of water, and I mix that together and I set it to the side so it's ready for later. So now I'm about to go ahead and make the twist. So I split the dough in half. I end up only using half the dough. There's enough of everything to make twice as much as what I made, but I just decided to do half for right now. And the goal for when I'm rolling this out is to get a rectangle that's about 12 inches by 24 inches, but I did my best here, and now I'm gonna brush the egg wash over the entire surface of the dough. And then after that, I'm going to sprinkle about half of the cheese mixture on top of that dough. Here I was being pretty generous with the cheese. I think the size of my dough was a little bit off, so it looked like I had a pretty good buildup of cheese, but I think it all worked out fine in the end. Now I'm going to fold over the top of the dough, the side without the cheese over the side with the cheese. And here I kind of realized that I really should have tried to make this a lot more even, so more square around the edges, so I could get a really nice overlap over the top, unlike what you see here, and some of the cheese is kind of overhanging the top part, but it's not too big of a deal. And I'm just gonna roll that out a little bit more, kind of just to make it just a little bit bigger. I'm honestly not really sure the purpose of that. Maybe it's just to seal it. And now I use the pizza cutter to cut it into strips about 3/4 of an inch in width. And finally, I'm going to go ahead and create the twist, just twisting the ends in opposite directions when I place it on a sheet of parchment paper. And some of them have this problem where when you pick it up, the two sides come apart and some of the filling comes out. And since it's not really sticking together, twisting it is a little bit more tricky, a little bit more difficult. But if you just keep at it, it's not gonna fall apart. It's just a little bit more messy, I guess. And for this last one, it was pretty stuck onto the surface, so I just decided to kind of roll it up more like a cinnamon roll. So you could twist them in different ways. You don't have to twist them all lengthwise like the recipe says. And before I put them in the oven, I brushed them with some egg wash to help them brown. I ended up baking these for about 19 minutes to get a relatively golden brown color on them, and I immediately transfer them to a cooling rack to cool for about 10 minutes. So what did I think about these cheese twists? I think they were pretty good. Despite some of the struggles in making them, I think they are worth making. They're a pretty good snack. They're very buttery and flaky. The cheese flavor definitely builds, and there is a little bit of spice from the cayenne pepper and paprika. So the more you eat, the better they are, but that's not to say that they're not good from the start. They just get even better the more you eat them. And once you have the dough, I think making these could be really quick. You could probably get them done in maybe 30 minutes, definitely less than an hour if you already have some puff pastry laying around, or the Blitz puff pastry that I made at the beginning of this recipe. So I ended up giving this an 8 out of 10, just because dealing with the dough is a little bit frustrating at times, but the end result is definitely worth it as far as the flavor and taste goes. Anyway, thanks for watching, and you could always go to therecipeanalyst.com to read a more in-depth write-up on this recipe. And let me know if there are any recipes you guys want me to try. Thanks.